Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our fireside chat. For those who don't know me, my name is Maguette Ndong. I'm working as a technical advisor for the Digital Square program within FHIR, and I'm based in Senegal. And for those who are new to Digital Square, we used to work with innovators, governments, and donors to support digital health programs through adaptable, interoperable tools that are designed to work together seamlessly. And one of the ways we do this is supporting the global health community through webinars like this. And today I am facilitating this session to assist my colleague, Jose Costa Texera, correct me if I misspell your name, who is a data management, standards and interoperability expert who has been contributing to global healthcare standards like HL7, IHC for over a decade. He has also facilitated the launch of the HL7 and IHC work groups in Brazil, Portugal, and Belgium, and has worked on numerous digital health projects around the world. So at Digital Square, Jose supports our work in Vietnam, supporting the work to create dashboards for community health worker digital tools. For a successful session, I would like to share with you a few information. First, please note that this session is being recorded, so we can post it after in our blog for others who wanted to review it or for others who just missed the session. I will also ask you to mute your microphones, all of you, except Jose, of course. And there is a Google Doc, I will just put it in the chat for a collaborative note-taking or for other resources that you should feel free to drop in. Do not hesitate to put your questions in the chat. I will be happy to ask them. However, I will encourage you to chime in and ask them directly to our expert, Jose. Also, you can drop questions in the same Google Doc with the link I will put in the chat, and I will do my best to move through them. Do you have any question before we start? Great. Otherwise, Jose, over to you to share with the community what we are going to learn / discuss today.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? Hi. Thanks, Maguette. Yeah, I'm Jose, and I'm working on standards, and this is a very open and collaborative discussion that we have on Fridays to explore a bit what FHIR is doing and what we are doing on FHIR. Yeah, we had a couple of more educational sessions where we went through the basics of FHIR. We went through how FHIR can be tailored or profiled to work in a specific setting or a specific country. And then we looked at things like terminology, etc. So if you haven't seen those sessions, or if you were not in those sessions, they were recorded. They are available. So if you want to get started with FHIR, go ahead. The videos are there. They are not formal training sessions. They are just a teaser for you to start playing with FHIR and to also to get more advanced training is offered by several institutions, namely HL7. So with that in mind, these are open discussions. They are collaborative talks that we want to have. And I would, it's really open. There's no topic, no preferred topic, except some things that we might want to mention here and there. So I would like to ask if someone has some things that they would like to discuss. So sorry for just bursting in with that or putting the focus back onto the people that are participating. There's a few things that I would like to tease you with, but let's see if someone has any topics or any things that they want to address, or their pain points, where they are in the FHIR adoption or the FHIR learning phase. It would be nice to hear from you, and then we can steer this discussion to the next hour. We can steer our talk into what you want to hear and to discuss, and not what I want to hear and discuss. So please feel to put things in the chat or in the shared Google Doc if someone has any any ideas. I'm looking at the Google at the Word doc, the Google Doc in the other screen. Does anyone want to raise any topic? Does anyone have any specific concern or specific gaps or specific cool ideas that they would want to share? Final warning: if you don't do it, then I will put my own preferences in there. Okay, so I hope that what I'm going to share with you is just the result of the last few days, here in and out, just doing a few things, evolving a few things, and having some discussions. I would like to share you one of the things that we have been aiming at. It's still not not deployed yet, so you see kind of a preview. You'll see a first thing. The idea is still getting matured, but it would be nice to have some feedback or to see how this fits into your preferences, feelings, etc. So we have discussed the fact that FHIR. So it's very hard for me because I do not know what is the level of the audience, what's the level of comfort or familiarity with FHIR. So I'm just going to put somewhere in between language, and then you can tell me if it's too detailed or you need more details. We have one of the great things that FHIR has is the fact that everything is computable. So the specifications in FHIR, they are computable. So this means that computers can understand what we are doing. This means that lots of the testing and validation work is facilitated. So if we say in FHIR the patient gender is can have these possible values, we say that in FHIR in a computable way, which means that we don't have to worry about manually testing that or manually checking that the messages that we receive, if they are conformant with that, because the tooling that is there is looking into that. So we have also seen from the FHIR specification, let me just share my screen with you. From the, the FHIR specification, I'm just going to open this. Oh, wait, I forgot to click the screen. I was actually thinking that you could see my screen already, so apologies for that. So this is the FHIR specification. I would expect people that are in this chat now to be familiar that this exists, not with all the contents, of course, but I'm not. There's lots of things that I still have to go through as I need it. But this being the FHIR specification, so this is the current released version of FHIR. We have gone through what is FHIR and the data types and the resource types and the basic mechanisms for data exchange in FHIR. We have gone through that, but we have also seen how we can make this work for us, as I mentioned, in terms of making implementation guides. We had one session a few weeks ago, 2 months ago, I think, that we went through this. And for those of you who remember or who have seen it, this is what an implementation guide looks like, and it has a couple of artifacts here. So we make models, we make profiles, we have value sets, and maybe examples to validate if our profile is okay. So this is what we do as FHIR specification analysts or developers. So one of the steps that we have been missing is, how can I test this in real life? So if I look at this, I have the FHIR definitions. Let me just show you. For those of you who are comfortable, it's not for getting anything new, just to position everyone on the same, to put everyone on the same page. So if this is our specification, so clinical status is mandatory, so it's 1 to 1, so it's mandatory and can only be 1. The allergy intolerance is 0 to 1. sorry, the allergy tolerance certainty. So this was just one example of a profile. This is for food allergy. Regardless of what's behind this, if we as humans can read this, that's very nice. We know that this is also available as a computable language. So just for those of you who want to see this, this is where all the things are defined. So there's the FHIR standard defines how these things are defined. So if we say, let me just look for it. Just see if I can. So for example, where is this? Oh, yeah, right. So this is the way that we define the minimum cardinalities and maximum cardinalities, so that this is how the FHIR language becomes computable. And if we want to test it, then we have two choices. Either we have all these things and we test manually, we know this and we test manually the messages. That's how we did in the good old days, but without the standards. But since this is now computable, we can actually use the FHIR tools. And the FHIR tools, there are FHIR validators. So there's tools that you can say, here's my FHIR profile. So my requirements, let's say my desired data structure, or my required data structure. And this is an example. And I want to see if this example is according to that structure. This you can do with the tools. So there are tools for that. There's command line tools for that. The other thing that you can do is to launch a server and tell the server, this is my structure. And this is an example. So dear server, please tell me if my structure is followed, or if my example follows that structure. The validator is inside most of the server, I think all of them. And because everything is computable, you can just leave that to the server to tell you that the content is not correct, or that to accept the message is if the content is correct. So what we have been playing with is one additional feature that hopefully can benefit some of you, or can trigger some ideas, and then I will pause to get some feedback. Which is, wouldn't it be nice if we have the servers? Oh, by the way, just for servers, we are usually talking about the Happy server or Graham Greaves server. For those of you who don't know this, this is how it. So this is the front end of how it gets implemented. This is just open source technology. It's already there. But wouldn't it be nice if we could just link the server to the implementation guide, or maybe link the implementation guide that we just created? So all of this package of structured content, so all of this is structured. Wouldn't it be good if we just say, this is very nice, I just want a server based on this. So now I want a real server based on this, and then I don't have to ask my developers to copy this content in whatever format, zip file or whatever, to copy this to the server. So that's actually what we're playing with, and I just wanted to see if I can look it up. It should be somewhere here. Forgive me, I have to open it. So I was just playing it a few minutes ago because actually I had it working in a decent condition, and then of course I wanted to demonstrate it, so everything crashed. But I managed to show this. So if I have an implementation guide, so this is just another implementation guide. It was just a dummy one, and I just wanted to show that what if we have this? So from the implementation guide, at the end of the implementation guide, they all have this page. Let me see if I can show this to you. Well, this one doesn't have, but I can, because I did not add it. So we can add a downloads page here, or implementation page, or whatever. And then if we can say, well, let's have a very quick way to deploy this, to implement a server based on this. It's actually possible. So thanks to the work of some colleagues, we can actually do this now. So this is the preview that I wanted to share with you, how we go from implementation guides, or from specifications defined in a FHIR language, to an actual running server that has those specifications. So this is actually possible. So we did some work of integrating the tools, and this is where we are now. So if I did copy this this command line and I ran it on my computer, this would be I would have a working server. Just a disclaimer is because I'm working on my local machine, and because this command line, I don't think it's going to work. Actually, I tested it, and that's the part, one of the parts that was not working. So I just want to show you something else, which is, oops, not this window. I just wanted to show you something. It doesn't really matter It was the wrong window. And I'll just so I'm going to, let's say if I want to go and change, I want to run this command line. For those of you who are familiar with Docker, you can see that, okay, this is Docker. As you can see, I have nothing there, so there's no content in there. Also, the only thing that's running is just something else, or it's actually not even running. I just have a terminology server because I was working with it before, but I don't have any FHIR server. So this is what you see now. And what I want to share with you is the command line. I'm just going to change it a bit to another command line, the one that I know that is working not on my local machine. So I'm just going to take any other example with this feature. And if I run this in a matter of a few minutes, or actually maybe 1 minute, I will have something new. I'll have actually my own server with my implementation guides without having to talk to developers, without having to download anything specific for this implementation guide. It's all happening behind the scenes. So we are working on this, and if you give it a few more seconds, it's starting the server. Let me see if I can already open it. Please believe me that this window was not opened when a few minutes ago I just opened it. It was on the other screen. But yeah, now we have a happy server running on this is on my local machine, and it has the content there. So it actually runs as it has a working server. It has the content that I had there. So I'm just going to show you that the only thing that I had there in this implementation guide was a couple of structure definitions and value sets. So I can just look at the structure definitions, and I can show you, never mind the syntax, but I can show you that we have a couple of structure definitions you see here. So this is it. It's a short thing to tell, but it's quite a good effort of collaboration that has been going on for the last few weeks here and there, and this is just being integrated. So and I wanted to close that loop. So from the moment that we have our specifications, we make our implementation guide looking into FHIR. So we make our own implementation guide, and then what? Then we want to test, and we want to have something to test it against. So we have our own server. My current thought is that we could be doing this. So we, the FHIR community, we could be doing this for any server. At this moment, it is working, as you've seen in Happy Server. I expect also this to be working soon with the reference server from Graham Grieve. So that's also another thing that we can add to this. And yeah, the idea is that make your specifications and don't bother tailoring your server or asking developers to tailor your server. Just click on this button and the server will be tailored for you. So from that moment on, I can just post, I can just make requests to this server to say, hey, please create me a patient. And if that patient is not according to what I defined should be the patient in my implementation guide, then it will say, well, this is wrong. So for example, here, if I go, no, not here, sorry, in the other window, where's this? Yeah, in this one. If I post an allergy intolerance that does not have a clinical status, using this approach, I don't have to worry. I just clicked one button, ran a command line, and the server is up. So next time I ask it, just telling, there's a few more tweaks that we have to do, but once we post an allergy intolerance, if we post it without a clinical status, we can have the server saying this is not accepted because according to FHIR this would be accepted, but this server is now responding in the way that you defined in your implementation guide. So this server is now tailored to your specific purpose and specific needs. So this is no longer accepted. So I would like to hear some comments on this. So how does the idea sound of having from an implementation guide directly into a server without any manual labor except copy pasting, and even that we might want to facilitate a bit. How does that sound? Oh, thank you, Chaminda. Can you clarify how would it handle migrations? I don't understand the question. Migrations of what? To what?
Hi, Jose. Thank you very much for that nice, demo, and it's impressive technology. What I'm thinking about is like if you change the profiles, which might happen, and you everything is in a Docker bundle, and you want to migrate it to the new profiles. How would you do it?
What you would have to do then is to stop this. I think you have to delete the volume again, republish the so make the implementation guide, and I don't know if you noticed, but this command line is showing you basically where you are. So if you build it locally, okay, locally it doesn't work, at least for my test today. But if you make a new release of the implementation guide, so if you're working on the continuous build of your implementation guide, and if you make one change, then that's pretty much the same thing that you have to do. You just do the same thing. You stop the server. I don't know if you have to delete the volume and you have to restart it, but I don't think so. I just think you have to say stop the server and run the command line again. So you just have to run the command line, because at that moment it will pick up this application YAML file, which by then will be different. So the file is automatically generated. That's actually the most part of the integration, is that there is a file in there on the server that contains the content of the implementation guide, and that package, I think it will be downloaded to or it will automatically be downloaded to your server again. That's a good question. I will just check if it confirms that. I will take that question as a requirement. So the idea is that if you click it, it runs. If you change the implementation guide, you should bring down the server and run it again, and you have the updated content there. If it doesn't work like this now, it would be because there might be something in the package cache, but even that is very simple to address. So that is a nice requirement that I should test. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm quite so new to Docker. I think maybe my understanding is like then you would have the data store somewhere else, right? In a different Docker or something.
Well, the thing about this, the way that this is done, okay, let me just share the detail there. So there's the Docker container, so the application there, that is running happy. That is static, that doesn't change, but is running happy with a specific configuration. And that is what you change. So I can run a different command line and run it with one implementation guide, and then with another implementation guide. I can run all this. The basis is all the same. You don't need to change that. The only thing you need to change is a small package file that comes automatically with this. That's why I say that when you bring down the Docker, nothing online needs to be updated for you. The only thing that needs to be updated is not in the Happy platform on the server itself. It's actually on the configuration file and on the package file that contains your implementation guide. So the server is one big working machine, and on top of that, we are just going to say, and this is the outmost layer. So this is the conformance layer that I want to set on this server, and that's the one thing that you do. So technically, this is, I don't know, maybe 500, 600 megabytes of stuff that I downloaded once for the whole server, for everything to run. It's a Docker image that's available online, and that's static. We don't change that. When I run this command line, what I'm doing is saying, okay, run the Happy project, the 600 megabytes, and the 1 or 2 megabytes more that are in the file indicated by this. So there's a few things happening there, but you don't have to re-download the whole server again, because that is a common layer. So if you can have 20 servers, each one running with its own implementation guide. The only thing that changes is that outmost layer, which is the implementation guide package itself. So you don't have to change anything on the Docker images. You just run the same Docker image with whatever configuration or whatever version of the configuration you want. So you can run this with my online configuration, with the server configuration, and every time you do that, you get different you get different servers with the same package, or sorry, with different packages, same content but with different packages. So
thank you very much.
What I could do now, well, this is not, so I should stop that. if I did run this on this window, and if I have, actually, let me just do this. The thing is that I don't have another window, another working image to run, but it's very simple. So if I do this, if I go here and say, not whatever, I don't know, or oops, sorry, it's not the right place to write. If I go here and change something here, which it's not going to work, so I don't change it. But if I could point it to another place or to another version, or just to the same place. So I ran the other line, and you see here there's something working here. This one is the new one. This one was a previous one. And if I run this one, this one is not going to work because it's on the same port. I'm just going to change the ports, and I will run another server next to this one. And just imagine that in that command line, I get this from different servers, so from different implementation guides. Sorry. And I'm running a new server on the same machine. Just to do that, just to avoid the conflict, I'm going to change the port names. I don't think this is going to work, but I can do that. See, it's just running different servers, and they can have different configurations. And I don't have to download the whole Docker, happy Docker again. The only thing that it downloads is the outer layer, which is the conformance layer that comes directly from the implementation guide. So how to handle migrations? Simply by just clicking again, and so deploying and clicking again, deploying and clicking again. And it's just that if you were, I don't know if you were in the session for the implementation guide publication, but as you know, the implementation guide publisher, you do a commit, and 5 minutes, at most 5 minutes later, you have your implementation guide. And the idea is that you do that, and then when you run the command line again, then you have your new version of the server. And then you make a change, you forgot something, you make another change, and then you run it again, and then you have the yet newer version of the server. So you should not need to worry about that. Just point it at the URL like this one here, which comes out of the box, and that's all you need to worry about. Anyone else has questions, ideas, not related to this? It could be about fire testing or fire profiling or anything interesting that you would want to discuss.
I have one question that was raised yesterday when we were meeting with the Ministry of Health and one of the implementers. And I remember the vendor was like, I have a tool, a fire-based tool with all the resources, profile, etc. But my issue is the other tool I need to be interoperable with. It is not fire-based. So they don't know how to deal with that situation, since the Minister of Health is talking always about interoperability, but it looks like also even governments, they don't know what we mean by fire. When we say interoperability, is it just we are sharing data, or it is no, I have a database, I can put my data then and someone can come and collect some data, etc. So the two questions that were raised is the first about the vendor who need to understand how he will deal with this situation with his fire-based tool versus one which is not really fire-based. And the second one is how governments understand fire, how they need to work with fire. Because when we were talking about fire, it is more about innovators, but what about governments with fire?
Thank you. Those are interesting questions indeed. Let me start with the second question. How do we explain what fire is, and how do we get started on fire? So there's a long list of things that we need to keep in mind on that, and maybe it would be useful to start, having a short session on exactly that. The experience that we gain over the years to see what ministries should be ready for and what they want to hear when we talk about fire. Some of it is in here. So if you go to the fire specification, you have some introduction. So you have the executive summary, you have the clinical introduction, the architect's introduction. So it depends on who your audience is. You have some ideas for fire. Sometimes it can be fairly technical. The clinical one is, of course, less technical. Maybe there is one even prior step that we don't have here, which is this is a technical, more architectural thing. There's one thing which is, what is this thing interoperability based on FHIR? Well, so let's go now, taking this to your first question. So on the second question, basically my answer is, yeah, there is a lot to be discussed there. I would start with looking at the Fire specification, especially the introductory part here, and see what comes out of there. A very always useful resource is going into the Fire chat. I hope everyone in this session has a Fire chat account, because it's really, really useful. And then you can go to the social channel and say, hey guys, I'm new to Fire, or we are new to Fire. I have this project, or I heard about this project. Who can point me to the right resources? And that it's quite easy to get that some good responses there from people that are at the same level or in a previous level to what you are now, or more advanced levels. So that's always interesting. I do this all the time. So it's good to check the community. So the most powerful thing in Fire is actually the community that made it grow to where it is now. Use that. And it's an open community. It's a very collaborative community. Everyone is willing to help. So please use that, and go to chat.fire.org if you don't have an account, because actually I have a request to ask from the people participating in this session today. It's about the tool that I was mentioning before, and I would like to share this with you, depending on the time we have available. I would like to reserve 5 minutes at the end. So go to chat.fire.org, go to hl7.org/fire, so the Fire specification, and look at the introductions, and there's a ton of material there. On the second question, how do we start interoperating with things that are not in Fire? In other words, how do we start interoperating? Or in other words, how do we start using Fire? So it's pretty much all the same question, because if you have some systems installed at this moment, most likely they are not using Fire, because Fire is a relatively new standard. So if you have an established architecture, it's not likely that everything is on Fire. So that's where you start. So we have a couple of systems, and we want to integrate those systems to use Fire. There's a few tricks to that. First of all, you have the technical enablement. So you should have a team that is relatively proficient with Fire. And by this I mean people that can look at the specification, understand the technical parts of it, understand the process of adopting the parts of Fire and configuring the parts of Fire that matter to you, and transform this into implementation guides, for example, or into test data, for example. So these are the kind of things that you should have this enablement. So once you have the teams in place, and besides the usual stuff, the business analysts and the clinical experts that might represent, the way that you do this, it depends. If you have a very specific application and say, I want this application to start working on Fire, then what you do is pretty much some reverse engineering. You guess your requirements from the application if you have to, or you list your requirements from the documentation that exists. And at some point you'll see, okay, this is the data that I need to exchange. And if that's the case, then Fire is a system for exchanging data. So it's not a path for a standard for implementing systems in terms of EHR systems. It's just a language for communication. So with that in mind, you say, okay, I have one system that talks whatever language the system is talking. It's maybe an XML Fire, maybe it's HL7 version 2, maybe it's CDA, maybe it's a custom JSON type, maybe it's text files. But I have two systems. They are talking their own language. Until now, they have agreed to talk this language. Now we want to introduce another language to those systems that they should talk. The analysis there, in my experience, follows a pattern. So besides the enablement that I just mentioned, the pattern is look at what the dialogue between those applications has to be. So if it's, for example, a prescribing application that has to send prescriptions, then the language, and it really helps me to think in human terms. I always say, okay, then application 1 tells application B here goes a prescription, I expect it to be dispensed. Or here goes a prescription and I have no idea what happens with it, I don't care. And by putting things into this language, you analyze a bit the functionality of what you mean to do. And from this, you say, okay, right, now what is the data that I have to exchange for the prescription to be dispensable, if I want it to be dispensable? Well, at least the name of the product, that would be good. Maybe the quantity would be good as well. And you start making this list. You say, okay, I have my name of the name or the code of the product. That's even better. And I have the name of the patient, maybe, or maybe the identifier of the patient. And you start having this analysis that you have to do for two systems to talk to each other. And this is where then you are in the realm of specifying FHIR. Then the whole things that we have seen, and I invite you to see our session on FHIR profiling and the FHIR implementation guide sessions. We have gone through this exercise for the food allergy. So you start with this, you say, and one application wants to report to the other application, this patient has a food allergy. Okay, then you have to say, okay, the patient is mandatory, right? The allergen, so the substance that we think the patient is allergic to, it's also mandatory, right? Clinical status, well, let's make it mandatory because, I don't know, somehow our stakeholders did tell us this. Do we want to keep a history of reactions? Well, we can, but just maximum one. And we have this analysis, always functional. My recommendation is always do that functionally to understand what your system is supposed to be doing. From there, we have the FHIR specification is just a technical specification on that. This has been described in our implementation guide, in our make your own implementation guide session. I think it was maybe in July, if I'm not mistaken. But if you look at our blog, you will see that session there. It's the one that has that's about implementation guides, and you will see that. So not to enter in more details now. This is what you do. So you have an application that doesn't talk FHIR, and you want to start imposing FHIR as a language there. Besides setting up your own infrastructure and teams, etc., and besides setting the teams that are going to decide whether the date is mandatory or the patient ID is mandatory, or if a patient name suffices, all of these things, they are not technical, they are clinical or business decisions. Besides setting up that team, the process becomes pretty linear. So you can do always, it's always the same method. You start by looking at what is the message that's exchanged between them. Is it, here's a prescription, I want it to be dispensed, or here's a prescription, I don't care about what happens to it, or here's a declaration that the patient has an allergy. If you identify those things, then it becomes easier to say, well, which parts of FHIR I would use. In the case of prescription, there is a dedicated resource for that. In the case of allergies, there's another dedicated resource for that. And then you start going into the FHIR resources, all of these FHIR resources, which it actually helps if you have a decent idea of what resources do we have. So if you go to the resources page, then you see, oh, wait, I have lots of things. I have a patient and a practitioner role. I can click here to see what actually that means. I have the endpoint. Well, let's see, I have a device. Okay, that's good to know. So this is pretty much the process. You start by seeing what you want to happen. You look into FHIR to see what is the appropriate data resource for this. And then if you say, for example, I want a medication prescription, well, this seems like it. Is it? It seems to be. If you look and if you read the description here, an order request for supply and the instructions for administration of the medication to a patient. Well, this seems right, what I want. So then you see, okay, this is the data structure that FHIR has. There's an identifier of the request. Okay, so there's a unique number. That's nice. There is a priority. There is a flag for do not perform. Okay, basically, if you are saying, I want the patient not to get this medication, that's a possible use case. You have then the medication with a code or a reference. You have the subject, which is the patient. You have the requester. You have the performer, like I want this to be given by a nurse or by a cardiologist or specialist. And you have a couple of things that help your analysis. So this is how you would start looking at the systems and saying, how can I make them talk FHIR? First, figure out what they want to say to each other, and then do the FHIR stuff. Sorry for a long explanation, Margaret. Does it help? Does it answer the question?
Yes, cool. Thank you.
More questions, more ideas. I ran out of ideas because I was working on this server thing, so I don't have any flashy new things, topics for discussion. So I really ask, maybe someone can share where they are with the FHIR adoption. It's always interesting to see that people are in different phases of adoption. Some people are just curious to see what is this FHIR thing. Some people are doing FHIR, but they want to see what others are doing. All of that is fine. Does anyone want to share where they are with the FHIR? If you are shy, you can type. If you are really shy, you can type on the Google Doc and no one reads your name. Okay. Then I do not know if I should understand, if I should interpret this as we know everything, we know all that we need to know, or if it means like, I don't know what this person is talking about, or if that means, good, I have lots of things to go and read about on the weekend. If it's the latter, if it's the third one, yeah, chat.fire.org and the Fire Specification and the Digital Square blog has the link to the introductory courses. And if you want, you can get, it's always recommended that you get some FHIR training where you go into actually the details, you become much more proficient. So with our videos, you can have a first idea of what is FHIR supposed to do. By going to a training, you actually know how to do it and you become proficient in doing it. Still no requests, no ideas, nothing? Fire profiling and position is in Sri Lanka, okay. No, it's not, sorry for much progress, but at least there is something happening, or there is an intent that something would be happening there. Yeah, how can we help there? What can we do? Okay, we are doing this enablement features. We are doing webinars. We are doing the server things. Let us know how we can help. This is what we have this open community for. And the others. Does anyone else want to share what they are working on and what their pain points, if they have already some? If someone doesn't have a pain point, I presume that this means they haven't started. Okay. Yeah. So if the situation in Sri Lanka is starting to move, or in any other country, yeah, always reach out to us. And by the way, the best way to reach out to us is, well, you can reach in any way. For me, myself personally, it's better just to go to chat.fire.org, which I hope by now everyone in session has an account, and just look up the names of people there that you want to talk. And then if you look at my name, most likely you'll find me online. Depending on the hour, my computer might be online, but I might not. But just reach out and drop your questions or ideas, or hey, remember we were talking about this country or that thing, or I remember when you're talking about the servers or about the implementation guides, and I had this question. And yeah, then I'm glad to help, or to direct to anyone else that can help more than I can.
And is this platform multilingual, or is it just in English? I used to ask this kind of question about language for the platform. Is it a multilingual one, or it is only English? So if you're asking about the chat, I do not know if it's available in other language. I think it's only in English. So the communication between the FHIR community is usually in English. But in FHIR, we can have different groups. So if you look at FHIR, there's lots of channels. Let me just, so I have the Belgian one where I'm residing. There is the Portuguese community, which is the language that I speak as well. But we have, for example, something, where is it? We have something that is about HL7 Brazil. We have Chile. We have something for everything Spanish. We have for Swedish guys where they just go nuts and mix the languages. That's fine. That's all fine. Just find your own flavor there. So that's about the communications. The communication is with a broad community in English, with a smaller community, whatever language you have. In terms of artifacts and what we are producing and what you will be producing,
if you make an implementation guide today, it will be in English. So even if you put the descriptions there in so this part in English, sorry, in another language, in other than English, so the data types, they are technical data types, so they are not going to be translated. This part that's your specification. So what you can specify, which is the names of the fields and the description of the fields, that you can make in another language. I would recommend against that. First of all, because it's easy for me. I'm from a country where, and I live in another country where we don't have a dominant language. So dominant languages are English, in the Western world, English, Spanish, German, and French. Typically, those countries, they have such a background in terms of language content that people are never exposed or are not as much exposed to so many languages as I am. For example, Belgium, we have 4 languages, English and the 3 official languages. So that's the things. And even if you are in a dominant language, you can expect we can expect the documentation to be required in the country's language, but the technical documentation, which is what FHIR is about, it's currently only to be in English. There is some work and some initiative to start translating this part of content into other languages, so that the automatic content, like this is automatic content, this is automatic content. It's a lot of work, as you can imagine, but maybe in the future we'll have a drop-down box here that says look at this document, but in another language. But even if you're from a dominant, let's say you're in the middle of Germany and your customers are in German and everything is in German and it's an official document, or you're in a French-speaking countries, of for example, French-speaking countries, I think there's a bit more of strictness to really requiring every official documentation to be issued in French, which is fine, but then this cannot be it because this is in English. And the technical data types are going to be in English, so you'll always have date time. You will never have the French the French time for that, which actually I don't remember what it would be. You will always have annotation, and it will be read annotation. It will never be read in French annotation, even if it's spelled the same way, because this is the technical type. So technical specifications, we are stuck to English on the details, because XML is in English. All those things are in English. JSON is in English. All those things are in English. The outer layer of this, the functional layer, there is something that you can do, limited at this moment. Magat, does it help you?
Yes, great, thank you. I know that we just have 7 minutes, and I don't know if we have time, because I want also to follow up on Alvin's question during our last webinar chat about the implementation guide. He was asking if it is enough to give the implementation guide to EMR developers, or should we just be giving out the implementation guide and the FHIR server's APIs as well? I just want to follow up, since I think I missed maybe the answer, or also to help others being able to learn more about this implementation guide and the FHIR service.
So I would just like to challenge everyone. So please open an account, or it's a free account on chat.fhir.org. And I would just like to invite you. I'm going to make a quick poll there. And I'm saying I'm wondering.
So after this session, we are expecting to have 1, 2, 3, 4 new accounts.
Okay.
For Catalina, Catalina, Antonio, and Marco as well.
Okay, and
Rhonda too.
I'm just going to make a quick poll, and if you go there, you can actually vote. Just click on it. So I just made a quick poll. I'm just going to vote in favor. So go ahead, and if you want, so there's some discussion, as you will see from the chat. Some people saying, well, I don't know if this is a real important thing. Some people are saying, well, I think this is really cool. It would help if you just vote it up so that it gets higher in priority. I expect this to be technically ready by early next week. But then we have to make it into the FHIR approval process, etc., because it's a tool, and it's a tool that we want to enable everyone. So my request to you is in this last minute from my side before handing over is, yeah, if you want to express your idea about this is useful or what the heck are you talking about, you now have another excuse to go to chat.fire.org. Go there, find the IG server. If you search for IG server, you should get there. So there's a search function, IG server, and if you search server, yeah, you should be able to find this link. And if you go here, you can vote. That was actually my thing. So it has a stimulus to get the chat.fire.org account. And if you want, just say if you're interested, or if you're not interested in this feature, or if you don't have anything to say about this. I would appreciate that. And with that, thank you very much. Magat, over to you. Thank you for this discussion. Thank you for the ideas. At any time, just reach out or please join the next session. Thank you. Over to you now.
Great, thank you, Jose, for this amazing session today. I will also go and vote as well, and I will also ask you all to create a chat, an account on this chat.fire.org, so we can better support you and also exchange on best practices and guidance to implement FHIR. Thank you so much for your attendance during this session. So our next webinar will be on FHIR. Let me just double check. It will be on FHIR Search Framework happening on November 3rd. So in the Google Doc, you can register in the Google Doc. I will also put it quickly in the chat. So you can also, sorry. So you can just also register there. And also do not hesitate to promote this FHIR Search Framework session that is happening on November 3rd. And also you have the mailing list. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to jump in also and reach out to us. We will be happy to support you. That being said, thank you again so much and have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks.